William Wagener here for On Second Thought. We're here with Steward Handte, who has 30 years by the book as a law enforcement officer. A lot of that is a motorcycle policeman. He's also served as sheriff. He's here to make a statement of his own free will. I think you should pay attention and listen because it may become very relevant. Here we go. Stewart is not in uniform. He's retired from the police, but he did have 30 years in law enforcement. Pay attention. Steward Handte, what do you want to tell us that we should know just in case something goes sideways?
Good morning, Mr. Wagener, and thank you very much for offering me this opportunity to videotape this message, which is of exigent concerns. To all who are watching and hearing this video presentation, my name is Steward Handte. Today's date is January 17th, 2022. I'm a man of peace. I'm not at war with anyone, and I have not done anything wrong. I'm going on record today that I'm in fear of my life by criminally corrupt people and entities who have made significant and concerted efforts to put me in a position where I've had to go to the extreme measures necessary to step forward and tape this message on the premise that if they are successful in killing me, these being the criminally corrupt people and entities, that this will serve as a permanent record to stop those by activating grand juries across this great nation of ours to take these people down through the voice and power of the true patriots of our country, we the people. And we the people can stop this insanity by not allowing the cabal to go after the good people and kill them before the truths are exposed. I'm a peaceful person, as I've stated previously, and I'm not contemplating suicide, nor I have any intent to harm or kill another human being. Quite the opposite of what's being portrayed currently in the local media market in Reno, Nevada, and some media sources across the country. I have lived in the state of Nevada since 1974. Most of that time I've lived in the Reno, Nevada area, that being over 45 years. During those 45 years, I attained a 30-year career in the law enforcement profession in the state of Nevada. Most of that was as a Nevada Highway Patrol state trooper, 2 motor officer stints in that career, and where I retired in good standing on April 8th, 2003. From that position forward, I continued to work in the law enforcement profession in Nevada, where I became the sheriff of Mineral County, Nevada, 2 tribal chiefs of police, that being in the Yama Indian Reservation and the Reno Sparks Indian Colony, a deputy sheriff in Story County, which is 2 separate positions, which included a rehire status, and a tribal adult probation officer also at the Reno Sparks Indian Colony. To add on to my working career, I was hired at a U.S. government military installation in Hawthorne, Nevada, where I obtained and held the United States government secret clearance so that I could work at that military installation in a security position, an achievement not many are able to obtain. However, during the career of law enforcement in the state of Nevada, I came across significant instances of corruption and criminal acts involving those in the legal and law enforcement professions. These actions began on, of all dates, 9/11 of 2001, where I was threatened with my career as a Nevada state trooper by the Department of Public Safety head, Richard Kirkland, and his minions. I have always been taught by my parents and my teachers and my mentors to take a stand against those who are criminally corrupt. And I did so time after time after time. That, of course, put a huge target on my back. I firmly believe, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that those who I have exposed as being criminally corrupt have now presented themselves in positions of power and authority to take me down and destroy me at all costs. On August 8th, 2019, I assisted a friend, Roger Hillygus, in rescuing his mother from an assisted care facility where she is being abused and neglected in the Reno area. This was after I had set up a meeting with Roger and a second individual at the Reno Police Department command staff personnel to see if Roger's concerns would allow him to rescue his mother with the legal paperwork he possessed. In doing so, the Reno Police Department command staff sent out a sergeant who basically told Mr. Hillygus and this other person that it was a civil matter and they would not be getting involved, but told them that they should go up to the facility and try to mediate the situation, which is exactly what Roger, the second person, and myself did. A lot of things have taken place since that, which resulted in Roger and myself being arrested. Myself at gunpoint by 6 members of a tactical SWAT team, and Roger by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office SWAT team after he was green-lighted or swatted. And ladies and gentlemen, being green-lighted or swatted means if he had gone to the window, they had 2 snipers on the roof, they were going to shoot and kill him. How insane is that? We have both been charged with felony crimes by the Washoe County District Attorney's Office in Washoe County, Reno, Nevada. Since August 8th, 2019, I've seen again, sadly, acts of criminal corruption being set forth against Roger and myself by the following entities. Number 1, the Washoe County District Attorney's Office. Number 2, the Reno Police Department. Number 3, the Washoe County Sheriff's Office. Number 4, the Reno Office of the FBI. Number 5, the State of Nevada Department of Public Safety. Number 6, the State of California. Number 7, the County of Los Angeles. Number 8, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office. Number 9, Reno Justice of the Peace Ryan Sullivan. Number 10, 2nd Judicial District Court Judge Barry Breslow. Number 11, all Reno local media sources who have defiantly refused to report the truth of our case versus the lies set forth by the legal system. 11 specific entities out on a personal vendetta to permanently shut me up and to go after Roger as well. I'm therefore asking for immediate help in securing witness protection for myself in order to protect my life as I filed a complaint with the Federal Department of Justice and will be shortly filing a complaint under federal whistleblower law as well. Lastly, Roger and I have compiled a list of 30 items that at this date are missing exculpatory evidence that the Washoe County District Attorney's Office has not provided, refused to provide, or stated does not exist. To both Roger and myself in the defense of our case, which is the most outrageous and demanding of loud, resounding statements, and what I've said in a Washoe County Board of Commissioners meeting by myself in testimony. How did Susan Hillygus die? I am in fear of my life, folks, and I will need those who can stop this illegal and malicious prosecution of me and demand a RICO investigation against the criminal entities who are on the course to destroy my life and kill me in the process to step forward and make their voices known in grand jury presentations, in contacts to the media, in contacts to their local political representatives. I'm not afraid to die, ladies and gentlemen. What I'm afraid is that my story does not get out because there are other people that are going to be facing the same thing that Susan Hillygus has faced and that now Roger Hillygus and I are being persecuted for. That is trying to save the life of a parent. And what loving son or daughter will not step forward to save the life of a parent? None that I know of in my lifetime. Thank you again for listening to me. I'm a man of peace. I'm not at war, but I'm in fear of my life.
Mr. Handte, let me ask you a simple question. Is there a financial motive behind the state of Nevada's interest in this case and making sure that Roger's mother, Susan, was under a guardianship, or at least a partial guardianship, of the state of Nevada so they could pilfer her estate? In your opinion?
Absolutely. As I've been indoctrinated into the illegal actions of guardian probate fraud that take place across the country, I have done my own research and looked into the multi-billion-dollar-a-year criminal enterprise racket that is taking place that deprives people of their estates and their trusts by those criminally culpable who are working in concert with others. Case in point, the April Parks case in Las Vegas, Nevada, where she was found guilty of taking millions of dollars from people who were susceptible to having their estates and trusts pilfered by April Parks and another gentleman, I believe his name's Jerry Schaefer, who was considered a godfather of guardian probate fraud. Ms. Parks is currently serving time in the Nevada State Prison, and rightfully so. But yes, this is all motivated by greed and power and money, the evil that pervades our society as we sit here today, Mr. Wenger.
Does the state of Nevada and their subsequent county prosecutors have an advantage, in your opinion, as a law enforcement officer, to set up a situation to pilfer the elderly's estates and steal their money and make it look all legal?
Absolutely. What they're doing is incorporating the legal system that is out there to protect us as citizens. They are incorporating the legal system. That means judges. That means attorneys. That means prosecutors. That means everybody involved in the legal system, law enforcement officers. It's all being driven by money and greed and self-motivation and selfish desires. So yes, they have the advantage because they are basically they're sitting at the top of the list saying, well, stop us. And by making this video today, I'm trying to tell people out there that are facing what we're facing, what we have faced with Mrs. Hillygus. We have to stop them because they are taking advantage of the system. I said multi-billion-dollar a year criminal enterprise taking place not only in the state of Nevada, but across this great nation of ours. And it's going to be up to we the people to stop this.
So is every elderly person in danger of having their estate stolen if they have any money?
If it's to the advantage of the people, if a person has $5 in their estate, no. But if a person has $5 million in their estate, absolutely. It's all about money. Has nothing to do with taking care of the people. I went on record and called these assisted care centers the modern day Auschwitzes. I will not deviate from that comment because my mother was in one of those modern day Auschwitzes and she was being neglected. And it took me in a forceful nature to extract her from that situation where she passed peacefully in her own home. And that's what everybody should have afforded that opportunity. Not to pass away in a facility that doesn't care about them, but to pass away peacefully in their own home, surrounded by family and friends that love and care about them and want them to go on to the next evolution of life.
Are you making these statements under oath? Is everything you stated here true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, sir, it is. I will make the statement under oath to whomever, but I am making it to you, Mr. Wenger, under oath, under penalty of perjury, under threat or any threats of coercion or intimidation. I'm not intimidated by anybody. I'm speaking the truth because the truths have to be told.
Have I intimidated you or threatened you to make this statement?
Not one bit.
Thank you very much for this. Let me ask you a further question. How much time elapsed between the time you first entered that Stony Care Center in Nevada where Susan Hillygus was being kept mostly against her will?
Yes.
How much time elapsed from the time you signed in to the time you left?
From the time I signed in legally, which has been told to be a lie, we have the evidence to show and refute that, which of course the detective in the case, Allison Jenkins from the Reno Police Department, admits on the stand under penalty of perjury that she was wrong and mistaken. By the time we signed in to the time we rescued Mrs. Hillygus was approximately 25 minutes, maybe 20 minutes at best, not a long period of time. Roger walked his mother down the hall, and there's some haunting memories of me meeting Mrs. Hillygus. I asked her some questions. She answered the questions. She was not dementia to the point she couldn't understand what I was asking. So we casually walked her out the front door. And one of the things that really bothers me is her waving goodbye to me as Roger and his mother drove off, not knowing she was heading to her doom.
When you were inside the facility, at any time did you ask her, do you want to leave this care center and go back to California, or words to that effect?
No, that was Roger. The questions I asked Mrs. Hillygus is when she saw me, she looked perplexed, and I go, Mrs. Hillygus? And she goes, yes. I go, do you know who I am? And she goes, no. And she goes, are you a friend of Roger's? I go, yes, I am. And I identify myself by my name. I'm Steward Handte. And she goes, well, I don't know you. And I said, do you know who this man is right here? And she looked at me, she goes, well, yes, that's my son, like, you dummy. And yeah. Roger said, Mom, do you want me to get you out here and take you home? And she looked at her son and she goes, please get me out of here. And there's another thing I want to mention. When we initially walked through the secondary screening door and Roger went over to the counter to talk to the people to present his paperwork, a lady came up to me and grabbed my arm and she said, please help me. And I looked at her, I go, ma'am, what can I do for you? She says, please get me out of here. And I said, I can't do that. She goes, I'm not asking you to take me out. She goes, just open the back door and let me go. I don't want to be here. I know where my house is. And she was crying. And
that was in 2019?
That was on the day we rescued Mrs. Hillygus, August 8th of 2019.
Do you remember her name?
No, but apparently when the third person involved in this situation went in to visit his aunt, Alice Ghetto, that she approached him, and I guess security personnel had to pull her away from him. But you know, that is a sad part of this whole situation, is people don't want to be there. They don't want to be in these assisted care facilities. I'm not going to deviate what I said. Modern day Auschwitz is exactly what they are. They don't care about is occupation of a bed, which of course takes money out of a person's trust or estate. And that's exactly what happened with Mrs. Hillygus. God bless you.
Very good. Thank you for the statement.
Thank you, sir.
William Wagener here again with Roger Hillygus, who often goes by the name of Gus.
That's correct.
Often uses the name Gus. What did you want to tell us, Roger, under oath?
I'm here to make a statement regarding what occurred August 8th of 2019 at Stone Valley facility, where my mother was being held against her will as a ward of the state. I did everything I could legally to gain the support and respect of law enforcement. I went with a 30-year law enforcement individual named Steward Handte. He had reached out to the command staff with the Reno Police, and I had scheduled to meet with them and provide them with the information that my mother was being neglected and abused, and to look at the paperwork, the legal paperwork that I'd filed in the court, which gave me jurisdiction over my mother. They explained to me multiple times that this was a civil matter and that they would not be involved. So I proceeded to the facility to question my mother if she wished to leave the facility, and she was very happy to leave with her son. They opened the door and said, "Have a good day," and we walked out of there hand in hand, very happy.
Was your mother also happy when she got to her brother's house?
My mother was extremely happy to be free, breathing fresh air and eating good food. She was continuing to improve. I will tell you that she was walking on her own. She was eating on her own. She was using the bathroom on her own. I did provide her assistance, but every day that she was off of the drugs that she was being provided at the facility, which I will say were black labeled, not to be provided to somebody in my mother's condition, because she did not have a diagnosis of schizophrenia. They were providing her with Risperidol, and that was black labeled by the FDA not to be given to my mother. So every day that she was not taking the drugs, she was getting better and better with her speech and her communication, and she was very happy to see her brother.
So, Roger, let me be real clear. We're talking about the state care facility in the state of Nevada was giving your mother drugs for which she should not have been given, and that was impairing her ability to express herself.
I truly believe that that is the case, that the drugs that she was given, she did not need, and that the only reason that she was given those drugs was to have her comply with staying in the locked facility. She had a home which was paid for, and a son who was a 30-year public servant, me, wanting to provide care, never wanting to be paid for the care, wanting her to have the best quality of life that she could have free in her home.
Roger, is it your belief that if your mother had stayed in that facility, the state of Nevada would have robbed her estate to pay for what she didn't even want?
They were robbing her estate, in my opinion, of approximately $10,000 a month to keep her in the locked facility. They needed to sell her home, which was paid for, that she could have lived in for free. But they wanted $10,000 a month. Absolutely. She did not need to be in that facility.
Are you saying this under penalty of perjury? Are all these statements you're making true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
I'm making these statements of my free will under the penalty of perjury. This is the absolute truth that needs to be on the record.
Have I or anybody else used duress to make you make these statements?
I'm not under coercion or duress in any way. I'm making these statements freely because the truth and the public needs to know what's in store for them if they do not stand upon their rights.
Thank you very much, Roger Hillygus. Today's date is Monday in mid-January, the day before they want former sheriff and 30-year law enforcement officer named Steward Handte to appear in arena court or a place designated to have an ankle monitor placed on him, even though he's been convicted of nothing. This strikes me as really strange, really beyond the pale of normal law and order. But I'm just William Wagener. I'm just one individual here in California who also witnessed and interviewed the Bundys and said all along the Bundys would go free, and they did. But it was the corrupt prosecutors of the state of Nevada that ruthlessly went after him. And don't forget, it was the state of Nevada personnel using the Bureau of Land Management had a kill list to kill all the Bundys. And they did lock them up in jail for more than 600 days and then had to turn the Bundys free. How crazy are the prosecutors, Hicks, and his subordinates, what's his name, Stagey. What's wrong with these prosecutors? Are they doing cocaine when they issue these kind of statements? I mean, I watched the whole thing last Thursday through Zoom. And I know most of you tuned out because it was very long. It went on for 2 hours. But the whole thing was talking about Stagey was trying to say, we need an ankle bracelet on this former sheriff, this former motorcycle highway patrolman with 30 years on the police enforcement offices. They wanted him to wear ankle bracelets, and he's not even convicted of anything. Nor has he failed to call on his own recognizance every week the person he's supposed to report to. Say, I'm here, everything's cool. And he's trying to hold down a new job to make a living. This to me seems insane. And it's also insane that there isn't one attorney I can find anywhere that will stand up and properly defend these guys. Because there shouldn't even be a defense necessary. When you rescue your mother from a substandard rest home and take her to her brother where she wants to be, and she's in the last months or years of her life, that's not a crime. That's called a rescue. If she was on a boat sinking in the ocean and Roger Hillygus had failed to go out, having a yacht, and failed to go out and rescue his mother, well, you would say that's wrong. But the whole state of Nevada is so run by criminals. Not just Kirkland, not just the current governor, not just Gloria Never, whatever her name is in Las Vegas. Gloria, you know, she would have made a good substitute for the Wicked Witch of the Oz movie, The Wizard of Oz. These people are intrinsically evil, in my opinion. And I'm just looking at this. I never met Roger before today, never met Stewart before today, face to face. And it's the same like I'd never met Cliven Bundy until I did that interview with him for an hour, which you can still see with his attorney sitting next to him in the studio. This is craziness on steroids. Somebody in the U.S. Department of Justice needs to step in and do some real investigating of who the real criminals are connected with this so-called rest home that Susan wanted to get out of and was competent enough to express that to her son. I'm William Wagener for On Second Thought. I hope you found this interesting because you might be the elderly person one day held against your will in a private prison called a rest home while they pilfer your estate. Just my opinion. Thanks for watching. Steward Handte, please tell me, how did you meet Roger? How did you get involved in this thing? I just want to know how this started. Can you just explain that for me, please?
Yes, Mr. Wagener. How I got involved with Mr. Hillygus is that I was at an attorney's office in Reno, and he was there. He was seeking assistance in resolving a traffic citation in Story County, which I affectionately call Corruption County, because I worked there as a deputy sheriff at 2 separate duty assignments. He and I began talking. I was there to look into my illegal termination as the only job I was fired from in my life, the tribal chief of police of Reno Sparks Indian Colony. We began talking about a traffic citation. That eventually learned into, well, I need to talk to you about another situation involving my mom, who I believe is being abused and neglected at a care facility. We had subsequent conversations. He actually came over to my house. We started discussing the parameters, and I said, well, what would you like me to do? And I said, he said, I said, what would you like me to do? He goes, well, can we figure out a way to basically rescue his mother from a situation? And because my mother had been neglected in another assisted care facility in Reno, I felt very sympathetic to his cause. I said, well, Roger, I don't have any legal authority to do anything, but what I will do is set up a meeting with the Reno Police Department administrative staff. I placed a phone call to the Chief of Police Soto. Apparently he was out of town at the FBI Academy. I subsequently received a call from Deputy Chief, now I guess Commander, now Deputy Chief Oliver Miller, and asked me, what do you want me to do? And I says, Ollie, and of course we're on a first name basis then, I said, just listen to the man. He's got some paperwork. You're the legal authority. You decide what you want to do with Mr. Hillygus. And at this point, I'm out of it. And that's exactly what I did. I set up a meeting. Commander Miller, or now Deputy Chief Miller, said he would meet with Roger Hillygus. And that took place the day of August 8th, 2019. But it wasn't Commander Miller. It was Sergeant Rob Hannafin, who basically told Roger Hillygus and the third party involved in this situation, who's never been charged, but yet been threatened to be arrested, and I'm not going to say his name because I believe he's probably in fear of his life as well as I am now too, that it was a civil matter. They were not going to get involved, but why don't you go up to the facility and try to mediate some sort of agreement between you and the facility, which is exactly what happened. Roger and I and the third person met outside the facility. It was a hot day. We met outside across the street because it was hot, and we met under the shade. I told Roger, I go, look, if anything goes south, if any people be accusatory, or there's some tensions or anything friction-wise that pops up, we're to leave immediately. We signed in legally. I signed in Stu and Gus being a nickname for Roger. At the time, I didn't know that, to see Susan Hillygus. Susie is a nickname for Susan Hillygus. We signed in appropriately. Roger went in, presented the paperwork to the staff. They took him to his mother's room. Roger and his mother came up out of the facility. We left out the front door with people waving goodbye to us. This is factual, documented evidence that the prosecution of the Washington County District Attorney's Office, the Reno Police Department, refused to acknowledge, and they perjured themselves in official court documents and on the witness stand. They left. I took the third person back to his car. I went home. Later that evening, my cell phone had a voice message on. It was from Deputy Chief Commander Miller saying that we have a serious problem. What's that? Were you with Roger Hillygus today at the facility? I was. He kidnapped his mother. I go, Ollie, how can a son kidnap his mother? Really? I said, and I copped, what, really? Kidnap? What? Ransom demand? No, he kidnapped. He didn't have legal authority. I go, yes, he did. And we got into this big thing. He goes, well, now it's gotten worse. So I said, okay, well, he goes, do you know where Roger is? I go, he said he was taking her home, so I would imagine he's at his house in Dayton. Let's jump forward. I was contacted by detectives the following Monday for me to be interviewed. I set up an interview on Tuesday to come to my house. When I didn't want my wife at the time involved in this situation, I provided them. I never threatened anybody. I never threatened to use any legal action against anybody. I cooperated fully. We went from my house to a Starbucks where I was forced to give my phone up under threat of arrest and or warrant. They didn't have a warrant for my phone, but they took my phone under threats of arrest. I gave them my phone. I asked when I could get my phone back, and they didn't have a warrant at this time. They said they'll give it back to me tomorrow. That turned into a nightmare for me on August 14th. Now again, this has happened after the 8th of August, August 14th, 2019. I was at the same attorney's office because I didn't have my phone. I was trying to go to a job fair at the Reno Hilton that afternoon, or Grand Sierra Resort, and I was waiting to get my phone back, so if I got a job offer, I could say, here's my contact information. So I contacted the lead detective involved in this case, Allison Jenkins, and she kept pushing me off, like, well, we need more time, well, we had to get a search warrant, we weren't happy with your verbal consent, blah, blah, blah. So later that afternoon, I went out to my car to get some paperwork. That's when I was taken down at gunpoint. 6 members of a tactical SWAT team operation were taking me down at gunpoint.
Where?
Right outside my attorney's office in Reno, Nevada. I feel to this day, if I had been open carrying as a retired law enforcement officer 30 years, they would have shot me. I feel that in my heart. I was manhandled and excessive use of force was used against me. They hurt my back. They pulled my arms up behind my neck and popped my back. They almost placed me in the ground. They started cursing at me and using foul language, saying that I was an effing piece of garbage and effing this and effing that. Those body cams that were attached to those officers was never provided to us. That's missing exculpatory evidence. I was then transported to the Reno Police Department. If I was under arrest, I should have been taken to Washoe County Sheriff's Office and booked, but I wasn't. I was unhandcuffed at the Reno Police Department, and I was told to reach out and try to find out where Roger was. I tried to the best of my ability. I was then re-handcuffed. I was never properly advised of my Miranda rights at the time of my arrest, nor at the Reno Police Department station. So therefore, that happened. I was taken up to the jail and booked, and my face was plastered all over the local news media stations, and in fact, across the country. My estranged father-in-law saw it in North Carolina. I've been subsequently labeled a dirty cop. I've been subsequently labeled a crazy cop, that I need a mental health evaluation, and now they're subjecting me to put a G.P.S. monitoring device because, like I stated previously, I'm in fear of my life. They're going to track me down. But Roger and I didn't anything wrong. We rescued his mother from an abusive and neglect care facility, Stone Valley Care Facility in Reno, Nevada. And I know you only have a certain amount of time. There are foundation blocks that go back 21 years when I was a state trooper of the Nevada Highway Patrol, where I was threatened with my career on of all days 9/11/2001 by then Department of Public Safety Director Richard Kirkland, because I had filed whistleblower allegations against him and his agency cronies to the governor's office and attorney general's office, governor of state of Nevada at the time, Kenny Gwinn, attorney general Brian Sandoval, now the president of the University of Nevada, Reno, and former governor and former federal judge. This is a web of deceit and betrayal and lies that tie in a very strong cadre of powerful people who wield a lot of influence and can make people's lives destroyed, can make people's lives disappear, and put people in a position where law enforcement takes lethal action to take them down. That is why I'm presenting to you today, Mr. Wagener, my concerns. Roger and I didn't anything wrong. We rescued his mother, only for her to die 2 months after the fact, which in and of itself.
But she didn't die at your hand. She died when the state of Nevada took her back.
Well, they took her back, and they took her back to 2 assisted care facilities, one of which was operated and still being operated by a friend that I've known since high school. And there was nothing wrong at the first facility, but the second facility, that's where she died. And my question to this day is, how did she die? Why did she die? My mom was in the throes of the last days of her life. She was nowhere near Mrs. Hillygus' condition. She was far, far exceeding that. And it took a long time for my mother to pass. Why did Mrs. Hillygus die 2 months after we rescued her? There's no investigation. There was never any investigation by the Reno Police Department, and attributed to on the stand by Deputy Chief Miller's testimony that, yes, they do investigate allegations of abuse and complaint, but why didn't they not investigate this one? There's so many questions out there that need to be answered, and I'm waiting to have DOJ representatives come to me and initiate a comprehensive criminal investigation into the legal system in Washoe County. That means the judges, the district attorney's office, and law enforcement officials. And I plead to the public today, please, for the memory of Susan Hillygus. And it's cost me my marriage, a relationship with my daughter, relationships with friends, some of which I've known for 45 years, and the death of my beloved dog. And for her, I fight on today. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Handte. Well, that's his statement. Now, you people that have watched me for a long time know that I don't get paid to do this. I've been doing it for 22 years. No one pays me to go out and do this. I didn't get paid to do this. I'm just gathering information that you probably won't hear in the corporate media. So think long and hard, because what's happening and did happen to Susan Hillygus could happen to you or your mother, your father. It could happen to me. When you allow the state to force themselves into a situation and force people into care facilities when there is a child that's perfectly willing to take care of them. I'm William Wagener for On Second Thought. I hope this gives you second thoughts. See you later.
Thank you, William.